translation of Sahih Bukhari, Book 78, Oaths and Vows. Volume 8, Book 78, number 618, narrated Aisha, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq had never broken his oaths till Allah revealed the expiation for the oaths. Then he said, if I take an oath to do something and later on I find something else better than the first one, then I do what is better and make expiation for my oath. Number 619, narrated Abdurrahman bin Samura, the Prophet said, O Abdurrahman bin Samura, do not seek to be a ruler, because if you are given authority for it, then you will be held responsible for it, but if you are given it without asking for it, then you will be helped in it by Allah. And whenever you take an oath to do something and later you find that something else is better than the first, then do the better one and make expiation for your oath. Number 620, narrated Abu Musa, I went to the Prophet along with a group of Al-Ash'ariyin in order to request him to provide us with mounts. He said, by Allah, I will not provide you with mounts and I haven't got anything to mount you on. Then we stayed there as long as Allah wished us to stay, and then 3 very nice-looking she-camels were brought to him and he made us ride them. When we left, we, or some of us, said, by Allah, we will not be blessed, as we came to the Prophet asking him for mounts, and he swore that he would not give us any mounts but then he did give us. So let us go back to the Prophet and remind him of his oath. When we returned to him and reminded him of the fact, he said, I did not give you mounts, but it is Allah who gave you. By Allah, Allah willing, if I ever take an oath to do something and then I find something else than the first, I will make expiation for my oath and do the thing which is better or do something which is better and give the expiation for my oath. Number 621, narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, we Muslims are the last in the world, but will be foremost on the day of resurrection. Allah's Apostle also said, by Allah, if any one of you insists on fulfilling an oath by which he may harm his family, he commits a greater sin in Allah's sight than that of dissolving his oath and making expiation for it. Number 622, narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Apostle said, anyone who takes an oath through which his family may be harmed, and insists on keeping it, he surely commits a sin greater than that of dissolving his oath. He should rather compensate for that oath by making expiation. Number 623, narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's Apostle sent an army detachment and made Usama bin Zayd its commander. Some people criticized, spoke badly of Usama's leadership. So Allah's Apostle got up saying, if you people are criticizing Usama's leadership, you have already criticized the leadership of his father before. But Warimullah, that is, by Allah, he that is Zayd deserved the leadership, and he was one of the most beloved persons to me. And now this, his son Usama is one of the dearest persons to me after him. See Hadith number 745, Volume 5. Number 624, narrated Ibn Umar, the oath of the Prophet used to be, no, by him who turns the hearts. Number 625, narrated Jabir bin Samura, the Prophet said, if Caesar is ruined, there will be no Caesar after him. And if Khosrow is ruined, there will be no Khosrow after him. And, by him in whose hand my soul is, surely you will spend their treasures in Allah's cause. Number 627, narrated Aisha, the Prophet said, O followers of Muhammad, by Allah, if you knew what I know, you would weep much and laugh little. Number 628, narrated Abdullah bin Hisham, we were with the Prophet and he was holding the hand of Umar bin al-Khattab. Umar said to him, O Allah's Apostle, you are dearer to me than everything except my own self. The Prophet said, no, by him in whose hand my soul is, you will not have complete faith till I am dearer to you than your own self. Then Umar said to him, however, now, by Allah, you are dearer to me than my own self. The Prophet said, now, O Umar, now you are a believer. Number 629, narrated Abu Hurairah and Zayd bin Khalid, 2 men had a dispute in the presence of Allah's Apostle. One of them said, O Allah's Apostle, judge between us according to Allah's laws. The other, who was wiser, said, yes, O Allah's Apostle. judge between us according to Allah's laws and allow me to speak." The Prophet said, "Speak." He said, "My son was a laborer serving this person and he committed illegal sexual intercourse with his wife. The people said that my son is to be stoned to death, but I ransomed him with 100 sheep and a slave girl." Then I asked the learned people, who informed me that my son should receive 100 lashes and will be exiled for 1 year, and stoning will be the lot for the man's wife. Allah's Apostle said, "Indeed, by him in whose hand my soul is, I will judge between you according to Allah's laws. As for your sheep and slave girl, they are to be returned to you." Then he scourged his son 100 lashes and exiled him for 1 year. Then Anas al-Islami was ordered to go to the wife of the second man, and if she confessed the crime, then stone her to death. She did confess, so he stoned her to death. Number 630, narrated Abu Bakr, the Prophet said, "Do you think if the tribes of Aslam, Gifar, Muzayna and Juhayna are better than the tribes of Tamim, Amir bin Sasai, Ghatfan and Asad, they the second group are despairing and losing?" The Prophet's companion says, "Yes, they are." He said, "By him in whose hand my soul is, they the first group are better than them the second group." Number 631, narrated Abu Humayd as-Sa'idi, Allah's Apostle employed an employee to collect zakat. The employee returned after completing his job and said, "O Allah's Apostle, this amount of zakat is for you, and this other amount was given to me as a present." The Prophet said to him, "Why didn't you stay at your father's or mother's house and see if you would be given presents or not?" Then Allah's Apostle got up in the evening after the prayer, and having testified that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and praised and glorified Allah as he deserved, he said, "Now then, what about an employee whom we employ and then he comes and says, 'This amount of zakat is for you, and this amount was given to me as a present'? Why didn't he stay at the house of his father and mother to see if he would be given presents or not? By him in whose hand Muhammad's soul is, none of you will steal anything of it that is zakat but will bring it by carrying it over his neck on the day of resurrection. If it has been a camel, he will bring it over his neck while it will be grunting, and if it has been a cow, he will bring it over his neck, while it will be mooing. And if it has been a sheep, he will bring it over his neck while it will be bleating." The Prophet added, "I have preached you Allah's message." Abu Humayd said, "Then Allah's Apostle raised his hands so high that we saw the whiteness of his armpits." Number 632, narrated Abu Hurairah, Abu al-Qasim, the Prophet said, "By him in whose hand Muhammad's soul is, if you know that which I know, you would weep much and laugh little." Number 633, narrated Abu Dar, I reached him the Prophet while in the shade of the Kaaba. He was saying, "They are the losers, by the Lord of the Kaaba. They are the losers, by the Lord of the Kaaba." I said to myself, "What is wrong with me? Is anything improper detected in me? What is wrong with me?" Then I sat beside him and he kept on saying his statement. I could not remain quiet, and Allah knows in what sorrowful state I was at that time. So I said, "Who are they the losers? Let my father and mother be sacrificed for you, O Allah's Apostle." He said, "They are the wealthy people, except the one who does like this and like this and like this, that is, spends of his wealth in Allah's cause." Number 634, narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Apostle said, "The Prophet Solomon once said, 'Tonight I will sleep with 90 women, each of whom will bring forth a would-be cavalier who will fight in Allah's cause.'" On this, his companion said to him, "Say Allah willing." But he did not say Allah willing. Solomon then slept with all the women, but none of them became pregnant but one woman who later delivered a half-man. By him in whose hand Muhammad's soul is, if he Solomon had said, Allah willing, all his wives would have brought forth boys and they would have fought in Allah's cause as cavaliers. Number 635, narrated Al-Bara bin Azib, a piece of silken cloth was given to the Prophet as a present and the people handed it over amongst themselves and were astonished at its beauty and softness. Allah's Apostle said, "Are you astonished at it?" They said, "Yes, O Allah's Apostle." He said, "By him in whose hand my soul is, the handkerchiefs of Sodom Paradise are better than it." Number 636, narrated Aisha, Hind bint Uqba bin Rabia said, O Allah's Apostle, before I embraced Islam, there was no family on the surface of the earth. I wish to have degraded more than I did your family. But today there is no family whom I wish to have honored more than I did yours. Allah's Apostle said, I thought similarly, by him in whose hand Muhammad's soul is. Hind said, O Allah's Apostle, my husband Abu Sufyan is a miser. Is it sinful of me to feed my children from his property? The Prophet said, No, unless you take it for your needs what is just and reasonable. Number 637, narrated Abdullah bin Mas'ud, while Allah's Apostle was sitting, reclining his back against a Yemenite leather tent, he said to his companions, Will you be pleased to be 1/4 of the people of paradise? They said, Yes. He said, Won't you be pleased to be 1/3 of the people of paradise? They said, Yes. He said, By him in whose hand Muhammad's soul is, I hope that you will be 1/2 of the people of paradise. Number 638, narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, a man heard another man reciting Surat al-Ikhlas, the Unity, say, He is Allah, the One, Quran 112, and he was repeating it. The next morning he came to Allah's Apostle and mentioned the whole story to him as if he regarded the recitation of that surah as insufficient. On that, Allah's Apostle said, By him in whose hand my soul is. That surah number 112 equals 1/3 of the Quran. Number 639, narrated Anas bin Malik, I heard the Prophet saying, Perform the bowing and the prostration properly with peace of mind, for, by him in whose hand my soul is, I see you from behind my back when you bow and when you prostrate. Number 640, narrated Anas bin Malik, an Ansari woman came to the Prophet in the company of her children, and the Prophet said to her, By him in whose hand my soul is, you are the most beloved people to me. And he repeated the statement thrice. Number 641, narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's Apostle met Umar bin al-Khattab while the latter was going with a group of camel riders, and he was swearing by his father. The Prophet said, Lo! Allah forbids you to swear by your fathers, so whoever has to take an oath, he should swear by Allah or keep quiet. Number 643, narrated Abdullah bin Umar, Allah's Apostle said, Do not swear by your fathers. Number 644, narrated Zadam, there was a relation of love and brotherhood between this tribe of Jarman al-Ash'ariyin. Once we were with Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, and then a meal containing chicken was brought to Abu Musa, and there was present a man from the tribe of Ta'amila who was of red complexion as if he were from non-Arab freed slaves. Abu Musa invited him to the meal. He said, I have seen chickens eating dirty things, so I deemed it filthy and took an oath that I would never eat chicken. On that, Abu Musa said, Get up, I will narrate to you about that. Once a group of the Ash'ariyin and I went to Allah's Apostle and asked him to provide us with mounts. He said, By Allah, I will never give you any mounts nor do I have anything to mount you on. Then a few camels of war booty were brought to Allah's Apostle, and he asked about us, saying, Where are the Ash'ariyin? He then ordered 5 nice camels to be given to us, and when we had departed, we said, What have we done? Allah's Apostle had taken the oath not to give us any mounts, and that he had nothing to mount us on, and later he gave us that we might ride? Did we take advantage of the fact that Allah's Apostle had forgotten his oath? By Allah, we will never succeed. So we went back to him and said to him, We came to you to give us mounts, and you took an oath that you would not give us any mounts and that you had nothing to mount us on. On that he said, I did not provide you with mounts, but Allah did. By Allah, if I take an oath to do something, and then find something else better than it, I do that which is better and make expiation for the dissolution of the oath. Number 645, narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, Whoever swears saying in his oath, By Allah and Allah, should say, None has the right to be worshipped but Allah. And whoever says to his friend, Come, let me gamble with you, should give something in charity. Number 646, narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's Apostle had a gold ring made for himself, and he used to wear it with the stone towards the inner part of his hand. Consequently, the people had similar rings made for themselves. Afterwards the Prophet sat on the pulpit and took it off, saying, I used to wear this ring and keep its stone towards the palm of my hand. He then threw it away and said, By Allah, I will never wear it. Therefore all the people threw away their rings as well. Number 647, narrated Thabit bin Ad-Dahhak, the Prophet said, Whoever swears by a religion other than Islam, is, as he says. And whoever commits suicide with something, will be punished with the same thing in the hellfire. And cursing a believer is like murdering him. And whoever accuses a believer of disbelief, then it is as if he had killed him. Number 648, narrated Al-Bara, the Prophet ordered us to help others to fulfill the oaths. Number 649, narrated Usama, once a daughter of Allah's Apostle sent a message to Allah's Apostle while Usama, Sa'd, and my father or Ubay were sitting there with him. She said, in the message, My child is going to die. Please come to us. Allah's Apostle returned the messenger and told him to convey his greetings to her, and say, Whatever Allah takes, is for him, and whatever he gives is for him, and everything with him has a limited fixed term in this world, so she should be patient and hope for Allah's reward. Then she again sent for him, swearing that he should come. So the Prophet got up, and so did we. When he sat there at the house of his daughter, the child was brought to him, and he took him into his lap while the child's breath was disturbed in his chest. The eyes of Allah's Apostle started shedding tears. Sa'd said, What is this, O Allah's Apostle? The Prophet said, This is the mercy which Allah has lodged in the hearts of whoever He wants of His slaves, and verily Allah is merciful only to those of His slaves who are merciful to others. Number 650, narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Apostle said, Any Muslim who has lost 3 of his children will not be touched by the fire except that which will render Allah's oath fulfilled. Number 651, narrated Harith bin Wahab, I heard the Prophet saying, Shall I tell you of the people of paradise? They comprise every poor humble person, and if he swears by Allah to do something, Allah will fulfill it. While the people of the fire comprise every violent, cruel, arrogant person. Number 652, narrated Abdullah, the Prophet was asked, Who are the best people? He replied, The people of my generation, and then those who will follow come after them, and then those who will come after the later. After that there will come some people whose witness will precede their oaths, and their oaths will go ahead of their witness. Ibrahim, a sub-narrator, said, When we were young, our elder friends used to prohibit us from taking oaths by saying, I bear witness, swearing by Allah, or by Allah's covenant. Number 653, narrated Abdullah, the Prophet said, Whoever swears falsely in order to grab the property of a Muslim or of his brother, Allah will be angry with him when he meets him. Allah then revealed in confirmation of the above statement, Verily those who purchase a small gain at the cost of Allah's covenant in their own oaths. Quran 3 verse 77. Al-Ash'ath said, This verse was revealed regarding me and a companion of mine when we had a dispute about a well. Number 654, narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet said, The hellfire will keep on saying, Are there any more people to come? Till the Lord of power and honor will put his foot over it, and then it will say, Cat. Cat. Sufficient. Sufficient. By your power and honor. And its various sides will come close to each other, that is, it will contract. Number 655, narrated Azari, I heard Urwa bin Zubair, Sa'd bin al-Musayyab, Alqama bin Waqas, and Ubaydullah bin Abdullah narrating from Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, the story about the liars who said what they said about her and how Allah revealed her innocence afterwards. Each one of the above 4 narrators narrated to me a portion of her narration. It was said in it, the Prophet stood up, saying, Is there anyone who can relieve me from Abdullah bin Ubay? On that, Uzayd bin Udair got up and said to Sa'd bin Ubadah, Layamrullahi, by the eternity of Allah, we will kill him. Number 656, narrated Aisha, regarding Allah will not call you to account for that which is unintentional in your oaths. Quran 2 verse 225. This verse was revealed concerning such oath formulas as no, by Allah, and yes, by Allah. Something against his oath due to forgetfulness should he make expiation? And the statement of Allah. And there is no blame on you if you make a mistake therein. Quran 33 verse 5, and Allah said. Moses said to Khidr, call me not to account for what I forgot. Quran 18 verse 73. Number 658, narrated Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As, while the Prophet was delivering a sermon on the day of Nahar, that is, 10th Dhul-Hijjah, day of slaughtering the sacrifice, a man got up saying, I thought, O Allah's Apostle, such and such a thing was to be done before such and such a thing. Another man got up, saying, O Allah's Apostle, as regards these 3 acts of Hajj, thought so and so. The Prophet said, do, and there was no harm, concerning all those matters on that day. And so, on that day, whatever question he was asked, he said, do it, and there was no harm therein. Number 659, narrated Ibn Abbas, a man said to the Prophet while he was delivering a sermon on the day of Nahar, I have performed the tawaf round the Kaaba before the Rami, throwing pebbles at the Jamrah. The Prophet said, there is no harm therein. Another man said, I had my head shaved before slaughtering the sacrifice. The Prophet said, there is no harm. A third said, I have slaughtered the sacrifice before the Rami, throwing pebbles at the Jamrah. The Prophet said, there is no harm. Number 660, narrated Abu Hurairah, a man entered the mosque and started praying while Allah's Apostle was sitting somewhere in the mosque. Then after finishing the prayer, the man came to the Prophet and greeted him. The Prophet said to him, go back and pray, for you have not prayed. The man went back, and having prayed, he came and greeted the Prophet. The Prophet, after returning his greetings, says, go back and pray, for you did not pray. On the third time the man said, O Allah's Apostle, teach me how to pray. The Prophet said, when you get up for the prayer, perform the ablution properly and then face the Qibla and say Takbir, Allahu Akbar, and then recite of what you know of the Quran, and then bow, and remain in this state till you feel at rest in bowing, and then raise your head and stand straight, and then prostrate till you feel at rest in prostration, and then sit up till you feel at rest while sitting, and then prostrate again till you feel at rest in prostration, and then get up and stand straight, and do all this in all your prayers. Number 661, narrated Aisha, when the pagans were defeated during the first stage of the Battle of Uhud, Satan shouted, O Allah's slaves! Beware of what is behind you. So the front files of the Muslims attacked their own back files. Hudayfa bin al-Yaman looked, and on seeing his father he shouted, My father! My father! By Allah! The people did not stop till they killed his father. Hudayfa then said, May Allah forgive you. Urwa the sub-narrator added, Hudayfa continued asking Allah forgiveness for the killers of his father till he met Allah till he died. Number 662, narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, if somebody eats something forgetfully while he is fasting, then he should complete his fast, for Allah has made him eat and drink. Number 663, narrated Abdullah bin Buhaina, once Allah's Apostle led us in prayer, and after finishing the first 2 rakat, got up instead of sitting for at-tahiyyat and then carried on with the prayer. When he had finished his prayer, the people were waiting for him to say taslim, but before saying taslim, he said takbir and prostrated. Then he raised his head, and saying takbir, he prostrated sahu and then raised his head and finished his prayer with taslim. Number 664, narrated Ibn Mas'ud, that Allah's Prophet led them in the Zuhr prayer and he offered either more or less rakat, and it was said to him, O Allah's Apostle! Has the prayer been reduced, or have you forgotten? He asked, What is that? They said, You have prayed so many rakat. So he performed with them 2 more prostrations and said, These 2 prostrations are to be performed by the person who does not know whether he has prayed more or less rakat, in which case he should seek to follow what is right, and then complete the rest of the prayer and perform 2 extra prostrations. Number 665, narrated Ubay bin Ka'b, that he heard Allah's apostle saying, Moses says, Call me not to account for what I forget and be not hard upon me for my affair with you. Quran 18 verse 73, the first excuse of Moses was his forgetfulness. Narrated Al-Bara bin Azib that once he had a guest, so he told his family on the day of Eid al-Adha that they should slaughter the animal for sacrifice before he returned from the Eid prayer in order that their guest could take his meal. So his family slaughtered the animal before the prayer. Then they mentioned that event to the Prophet, who ordered Al-Bara to slaughter another sacrifice. Al-Bara said to the Prophet, I have a young milch she-goat which is better than 2 sheep for slaughtering. The sub-narrator, Ibn On, used to say, I don't know whether the permission to slaughter a she-goat as a sacrifice was especially given to Al-Bara or if it was in general for all the Muslims. See Hadith number 99, Volume 2. Number 666, narrated Junub, I witnessed the Prophet offering the Eid prayer, and after finishing it he delivered a sermon and said, Whoever has slaughtered his sacrifice before the prayer should make up for it, that is, slaughter another animal, and whoever has not slaughtered his sacrifice yet, should slaughter it by mentioning Allah's name over it. Number 667, narrated Abdullah bin Amr, the Prophet said, The biggest sins are to join others in worship with Allah, to be undutiful to one's parents, to kill somebody unlawfully, and to take an oath al-ghamus. Number 668, narrated Abdullah, Allah's apostle said, If somebody is ordered by the ruler or the judge to take an oath, and he takes a false oath in order to grab the property of a Muslim, then he will incur Allah's wrath when he will meet him. And Allah revealed in its confirmation, Verily, those who purchase a small gain at the cost of Allah's covenants and their own oaths. Quran 3 verse 77, the sub-narrator added, Al-Ash'ath bin Qais entered, saying, What did Abu Abdurrahman narrate to you? They said, So and so. Al-Ash'ath said, This verse was revealed in my connection. I had a well on the land of my cousin and we had a dispute about it. I reported him to Allah's apostle, who said to me, You should give evidence that is witness, otherwise the oath of your opponent will render your claim invalid. I said, Then he, my opponent, will take the oath, O Allah's apostle. Allah's apostle said, Whoever is ordered by the ruler or the judge to give an oath, and he takes a false oath in order to grab the property of a Muslim, then he will incur Allah's wrath when he meets him on the day of resurrection. Number 669, narrated Abu Musa, My companions sent me to the Prophet to ask him for some mounts. He said, By Allah, I will not mount you on anything. When I met him, he was in an angry mood, but when I met him again, he said, Tell your companions that Allah or Allah's apostle will provide you with mounts. Number 670, narrated Azari, I heard Urwa bin Zubair, Said bin al-Musayyab, Alqama bin Waqas and Ubaydullah bin Abdullah bin Utbah relating from Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, the narration of the people that is the liars who spread the slander against her, and they said what they said, and how Allah revealed her innocence. Each of them related to me a portion of that narration. They said that Aisha said, Then Allah revealed the 10 verses starting with, Verily, those who spread the slander, Quran 24 verse 11 to 21, all these verses were in proof of my innocence. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who used to provide for Mistah some financial aid because of his relation to him, said, By Allah, I will never give anything in charity to Mistah. After what he has said about Aisha, then Allah revealed, And let not those among you who are good and are wealthy swear not to give any sort of help to their kinsmen. Quran 24 verse 22. On that, Abu Bakr said, Yes, by Allah, I like that Allah should forgive me. And then resumed giving Mistah the aid he used to give him, and said, By Allah, I will never withhold it from him. Number 671, narrated Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, I went along with some men from the Ash'ariyin to Allah's apostle, and it happened that I met him while he was in an angry mood. We asked him to provide us with mounts, but he swore that he would not give us any. Later on he said, By Allah, Allah willing, if ever I take an oath to do something and later on I find something else better than the first, then I do the better one and give expiation for the dissolution of my oath. Number 672, narrated Al-Musayyab, when the death of Abu Talib approached, Allah's apostle came to him and said, "Say, La ilaha illallah, a word with which I will be able to defend you before Allah." Number 673, narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's apostle said, "Following are two-word sentences or utterances that are very easy for the tongue to say, and very heavy in the balance of reward, and the most beloved to the gracious Almighty, and they are Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Subhanallah al-Azim." Number 675, narrated Anas, Allah's apostle took an oath for abstention from his wives for 1 month, and during those days he had a sprain in his foot. He stayed in a mashruba, an upper room, for 29 nights and then came down. Then the people said, "O Allah's apostle, you took an oath for abstention from your wives for 1 month." On that he said, "A month can be of 29 days." Number 676, narrated Abu Hazim, Sahih bin Sa'd said, Abu Zayd, the companion of the Prophet, got married, so he invited the Prophet to his wedding party, and the bride herself served them. Sahih said to the people, "Do you know what drink she served him with? She infused some dates in a pot at night, and the next morning she served him with the infusion." Number 677, narrated Sauda, the wife of the Prophet, "One of our sheep died and we tanned its skin and kept on infusing dates in it till it was a worn-out water skin." Number 678, narrated Aisha, the family of the Prophet Muhammad never ate wheat bread with meat for 3 consecutive days to their fill, till he met Allah. Number 679, narrated Anas bin Malik, Abu Talha said to Sulaim, "I heard the voice of Allah's apostle rather weak, and I knew that it was because of hunger. Have you anything to present to the Prophet?" She said, "Yes." Then she took out a few loaves of barley bread and took a veil of hers and wrapped the bread with a part of it and sent me to Allah's apostle. I went and found Allah's apostle sitting in the mosque with some people. I stood up before him. Allah's apostle said to me, "Has Abu Talha sent you?" I said, "Yes." Then Allah's apostle said to those who were with him, "Get up and proceed." I went ahead of them as their forerunner and came to Abu Talha and informed him about it. Abu Talha said, "O Sulaim, Allah's apostle has come and we have no food to feed them." Sulaim said, "Allah and his apostle know best." So Abu Talha went out to receive them till he met Allah's apostle. Allah's apostle came in company with Abu Talha and they entered the house. Allah's apostle said, "O Sulaim, bring whatever you have." So she brought that barley bread, and Allah's apostle ordered the bread to be broken into small pieces, and then Sulaim poured over it some butter from a leather butter container, and then Allah's apostle said what Allah wanted him to say, that is, blessing the food. Allah's apostle then said, "Admit 10 men." Abu Talha admitted them and they ate to their fill and went out. He again said, "Admit 10 men." He admitted them, and in this way all the people ate to their fill, and they were 70 or 80 men. Number 680, narrated Umar bin al-Khattab, I heard Allah's apostle saying, "The reward of deeds depend upon the intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. So whoever emigrated for the sake of Allah and his apostle, then his emigration will be considered to be for Allah and his apostle, and whoever emigrated for the sake of worldly gain or for a woman to marry, then his emigration will be considered to be for what he emigrated for." Number 681, narrated Ka'b bin Malik, in the last part of his narration about the 3 who remained behind from the Battle of Tabuk, I said, as a proof of my true repentance for not joining the holy Battle of Tabuk, I shall give up all my property for the sake of Allah and his apostle as an expiation for that sin. The Prophet said to me, "Keep some of your wealth, for that is better for you." Number 682, narrated Aisha, the Prophet used to stay for a period in the house of Zainab bint Jahsh, one of the wives of the Prophet, and he used to drink honey in her house. Hafsa and I decided that when the Prophet entered upon either of us, she would say, "I smell in you the bad smell of meghafar, a bad-smelling raisin. Have you eaten meghafar?" When he entered upon one of us, she said that to him. He replied to her, "No, but I have drunk honey in the house of Zainab bint Jahsh, and I will never drink it again." Then the following verse was revealed: O Prophet, why do you ban for you that which Allah has made lawful for you? Up to a few. 2 wives of the Prophet turn in repentance to Allah. Quran 66 verse 1-4. The 2 were Aisha and Hafsa, and also the statement of Allah, and remember when the Prophet disclosed a matter in confidence to one of his wives. Quran 66 verse 3, that is, his saying, but I have drunk honey. Hisham said, it also meant his saying, I will not drink any more, and I have taken an oath, so do not inform anybody of that. Number 683, narrated Sayyid bin al-Harith, that he heard Ibn Umar saying, weren't people forbidden to make vows? The Prophet said, a vow neither hastens nor delays anything, but by the making of vows, some of the wealth of a miser is taken out. Number 684, narrated Abdullah bin Umar, the Prophet forbade the making of vows and said, a vow does not prevent anything that has to take place, but the property of a miser is spent taken out with it. Number 685, narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, Allah says, the vow does not bring about for the son of Adam anything I have not decreed for him, but his vow may coincide with what has been decided for him, and by this way I cause a miser to spend of his wealth. So he gives me spends in charity for the fulfillment of what has been decreed for him, what he would not give me before but for his vow. Number 686, narrated Zadam bin Mudarrab, Imran bin Hussein said, the Prophet said, the best of you people are my generation, and the second best will be those who will follow them, and then those who will follow the second generation. Imran added, I do not remember whether he mentioned 2 or 3 generations after his generation. He added, then will come some people who will make vows but will not fulfill them. And they will be dishonest and will not be trustworthy, and they will give their witness without being asked to give their witness, and fatness will appear among them. Number 687, narrated Aisha, the Prophet said, whoever vows that he will be obedient to Allah, should remain obedient to him. And whoever made a vow that he will disobey Allah, should not disobey him. Number 688, narrated Ibn Umar, Umar said, O Allah's Apostle, I vowed to perform itikaf for one night in al-Masjid al-Haram, during the pre-Islamic period of ignorance before embracing Islam. The Prophet said, fulfill your vow. Ibn Umar said to the lady, pray on her behalf. Ibn Abbas said the same. Number 689, narrated Sayyid bin Abada al-Ansari, that he consulted the Prophet about a vow that had been made by his mother who died without fulfilling it. The Prophet gave his verdict that he should fulfill it on her behalf. The verdict became sunnah, that is the Prophet's tradition. Number 690, narrated Ibn Abbas, a man came to the Prophet and said to him, my sister vowed to perform the Hajj, but she died before fulfilling it. The Prophet said, would you not have paid her debts if she had any? The man said, yes. The Prophet said, so pay Allah's rights, as he is more entitled to receive his rights. Number 691, narrated Aisha, the Prophet said, whoever vowed to be obedient to Allah, must be obedient to him. And whoever vowed to be disobedient to Allah, should not be disobedient to him. Number 692, narrated Anas, the Prophet said, Allah is not in need of this man torturing himself, when he saw the man walking between his 2 sons who were supporting him. Number 693, narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet saw a man performing tawaf around the Kaaba, tied with a rope or something else while another person was holding him. The Prophet cut that rope off. Number 694, narrated Ibn Abbas, while performing the tawaf around the Kaaba, the Prophet passed by a person leading another person by a hair rope nose ring in his nose. The Prophet cut the hair rope nose ring off with his hand and ordered the man to lead him by the hand. Number 695, narrated Ibn Abbas, while the Prophet was delivering a sermon, he saw a man standing, so he asked about that man. The people said, it is Abu Israel who has vowed that he will stand and never sit down, and he will never come in the shade, nor speak to anybody, and will fast. The Prophet said, order him to speak and let him come in the shade, and make him sit down, but let him complete his fast. Number 696, narrated Abdullah bin Umar, that he was asked about a man who had vowed that he would fast all the days of his life. Then the day of Eid al-Adha or Eid al-Fitr came. Abdullah bin Umar said, "You have indeed a good example in Allah's Apostle. He did not fast on the day of Eid al-Adha or the day of Eid al-Fitr, and we do not intend fasting on these 2 days." Number 697, narrated Ziyad bin Jubair, "I was with Ibn Umar when a man asked him, 'I have vowed to fast every Tuesday or Wednesday throughout my life, and if the day of my fasting coincided with the day of Nahar, the first day of Eid al-Adha, what shall I do?' Ibn Umar said, 'Allah has ordered the vows to be fulfilled, and we are forbidden to fast on the day of Nahar.'" The man repeated his question and Ibn Umar repeated his former answer, adding nothing more. Number 698, narrated Abu Hurairah, "We went out in the company of Allah's Apostle on the day of the Battle of Khaybar, and we did not get any gold or silver as war booty, but we got property in the form of things and clothes." Then a man called Rifa'ah bin Zayd, from the tribe of Bani Abdubayb, presented a slave named Midam to Allah's Apostle. Allah's Apostle headed towards the valley of Al-Qura, and when he was in the valley of Al-Qura, an arrow was thrown by an unidentified person, struck and killed Midam, who was making a she-camel of Allah's Apostle kneel down. The people said, "Congratulations to him, the slave, for gaining paradise." Allah's Apostle said, "No. By him in whose hand my soul is, for the sheet which he stole from the war booty before its distribution on the day of Khaybar, is now burning over him." When the people heard that, a man brought 1 or 2 shiraks leather straps of shoes to the Prophet. The Prophet said, "A shirak of fire, or 2 shiraks of fire."